Hari Om.
Hari Om. Good evening and welcome to our next session of Kindle Live. Today is day 27 and we are going to complete our chapter on Japa Yoga. But let us begin this session with prayers.
Om Samast Jan Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहैः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ.
Suppose I were to take any one of you to a laboratory and show you under a microscope a slide. This slide, I know, is a dissection of a very tiny seed. And when you peer into the microscope, you will see those two dicotyledons and the other parts which are inside of a very, very tiny seed. Seeing that, you will never imagine that to be what its real form is, which is that large, magnificent oak tree which is there. But if I were to take you on this hillside and show you this magnificent oak tree and then see its lovely branches and the fruit that it has, upon opening the fruit, I would show you the seed in it. And then this seed, if I were to see under the microscope, I would be able to connect it to that big oak tree. Similarly, while doing japa, in order to understand the subtle inner importance of the japa, it is necessary to begin with the larger outer gross form. That is why Gurudev has explained to us, when you begin japa, how you are supposed to sit alone in a room with the image of your Ishta Devta in front of you at a correct height, and then following the steps which you have already seen earlier. Then take your japa mala, keeping the pointer away from you, and then start doing the japa. So let us continue on our journey to understand this very clearly.
Japa Yoga. Start today, right now. There is no moment more sacred or so auspicious as here and now for spiritual practice. Japa is an easy method for men like us, kicked about and bullied by the worlds without and within. There may have come so many opportunities in our life where there was an point in time where you were about to start japa, but something from outside or some inhibition from inside stopped you. Here Gurudev has given us the beautiful atmosphere and perfect time. Start now.
Essentially, in life's ups and downs, when you were maybe about to taste great success and it just missed you, and the uneasiness that causes you. So to remove yourself from all of this ups and downs, the uneasiness that is there within you, japa is a beautiful method to get peace.
Here Gurudev is introducing us to two very different kind of mantras. One, A, Vedantic mantras. I'll explain to you all what the Vedantic word means. The mantras are Tat Tvamasi, that thou art. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Ayam Atma Brahman, this self is Brahman. Shivoham, Shivoham, I am Shiva, auspiciousness. Tadeva Satyam, Tad Brahma, that alone is the truth. That is Brahman. Anandoham, Anandoham, I am Ananda, I am bliss. Hamsa soham hamsa. I am he is me, I am he. The Vedantic mantras or the Vedic mantras, in this era, this period where only the Vedas and the Upanishads were the real knowledge books, in there, yet the images of the deities had not come. The forms had not come. Therefore, all the knowledge is purely based on the self. There is no such image yet. However, the Pauranic mantras, the Pauranic age came just when Bhagwan Vedavyas came into the scene. And as we have already spoken, realizing that the memory of mankind is going to become diminished, the stories, the history had to be preserved. The knowledge of the Vedas, the Upanishad, was told in variety of stories. From all over India, from the edge to edge, everywhere, Bharatavarsha as it used to be called, Vedavyas collected 18 Mahapuranas, they are called, and 18 Laghu Puranas. In this, there are innumerable stories.
Based on our gods and goddesses.
And the great heroes also.
Essentially to let us know the essence of Upanishads. The purpose was the same, but told in a different form.
In an easy way to understand, story form.
More for all common man to know. So know this very clearly, that Vedantic is the original, which is the oldest or the most ancient, the root from where everything begins.
And the mantras were also in the form of deities.
That is of the Puranic.
Of the Puranic mantras I am talking of the deities like Narayana Bhagwan, Ram Bhagwan, Shiva Bhagwan. So we will now read the mantras of the Puranic. Om Namo Narayana. Om Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Shri Shanmukhaya Namah. Om Shri Ramachandraya Namah. Om Shri Lakshmi Namah. And others. These mantras can be taken up according to taste, faith, devotion, for the purpose of regular, purposeful, intense chanting. While doing japa, remember that even though the asana, the beads rolling, the Ishta Devata and such other equipments for japa are external, japa in itself is not physical, but it is to be mental and is to be raised to the level of very near to that of spiritual. This is the key factor about mantra japa. You may have seen people doing mantra japa everywhere and anywhere. Gurudev has explained to us where it is to be done and how it is to be done. Here he is explaining it even further to the minute thing that can happen to a japist or a sadhaka. Please pay attention on every single sentence that is going to be read now. What I mean is neither a mere rolling of beads nor a non-stop muttering in the mouth can constitute the japa yoga. It should be an all-out intense and sincere effort of the japist to bring forth in him, in his mind and intellect, all the possible faculties like emotion, discrimination, sensitiveness, will, logic, reason, sympathy, love, faith, and pour them all into the act of concentrating upon the mental chanting of the sacred mantra performed at the feet of the Lord's form, which is visualized steadily within the naked chamber of the bosom. Once again, if you get your mind back after seeing the beautiful picture, the idol of your Ishta, Gurudev had asked you to close the eyes and visualize that powerful beaming face inside your heart.
Okay. So when you are going to do japa, after you make yourself comfortable in the correct position, concentrating on your Ishta Devata, then these mantras have been suggested either Vedic or Puranic or any from your Ishta Devata also, to be selected while doing the jap. So actually when you are turning the bead, that is the mantra that you are going to be speaking within yourself. And as explained, it is not a physical thing, it is a mental thing. So what are the other qualities also you should bring about within you while doing the jap?
During japa, one's mind generally enchants the unwary practitioner into the jungle of unproductive thought wanderings. If the student is not diligent enough to detect it and arrest the flow of thoughts, it is possible that this japa ends with his going into a dark ditch of impotency and stupor.
Exceedingly important. Many a times there are a lot of people just learn japa or do japa or just keep chanting the name, and of course we know our mind is a continuous flow of thoughts. So all kind of thoughts will come even while doing japa, and that is the reason the other qualities which have been mentioned, that you will have to be discriminative. So to select that you are going to concentrate only on the mantra that you have selected and not on the other thoughts, that you will have logic and reason that you are doing this as a spiritual practice to reach that consciousness or the goal. So all of these other qualities will have to be imbibed. Otherwise, this is also cautioned by Gurudev, otherwise what will happen? That you will go into the ditch of impotency and stupor. That means there could be or maybe consequences which are not good if you don't do the job correctly also.
So a stupor meaning is like a drunk person who is completely unaware of anything. That is not the state that we want to reach. Going further, this warning is to be strictly given. Many of the japists we see today in India, even all over the world in all creeds, have to a large extent rendered themselves perverts. Strangely enough, we find that the ugliness of their psychological beauty is directly proportional to the amount of japa they have practiced. To begin with, this seemingly simple yoga should not be over practiced. Start with a mala of japa a day. Slowly raise the number of malas. You may start by increasing the number of malas at first on convenient holidays only, and when you are convinced of your mental capacity to sustain your inspired attention for the required period of time, then alone should you take to long sitting at japa. Raji, here let me explain very clearly. The meru, the japa bead, between the third finger and the thumb, and very gently we start. Om. Om. At every time when you say the mantra, I am using a short mantra, the smallest mantra, Om. But every single time when you utter Om, your physical body, because of your movement of the finger, your mind and your speech, Vang and Manha should come together, and you should know what Om is every single time. That is japa, where your physical, mental, intellectual, all the three faculties come closer to the fourth personality, the self. Just holding it in your hand and doing Om, 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 that is not japa.
That is wrong. So that is what it has been explained to us. So instead of going crazy about doing a japa also, instantly, Gurudev has suggested also, start with one mala. Start on a holiday. So don't even do it every day. First you begin when it is convenient for you, when you are at peace, in your own time. That day you sit and start your japa. Just do one mala first. Then if your mind and your body, your senses tell you that yes, you can sit concentrated for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, then you begin regularly. Excuse me. And then you start maybe from one mala to two malas. So increase gradually, but remember that it has to be done in a particular manner. We have seen earlier and read earlier in Kindle Life that Japa is one of the practices which is like a fast forward in the spiritual path or spiritual journey, provided it has to be done correctly with all your devotion, your concentration, your discrimination in this manner.
Reading further. Another difficulty that comes to Japist, and this is common to 90% of the Japist, is an irresistible attack of sleep while doing Japa and a shamelessly evident tendency to express bad temper soon after the Japa sadhana. See how caring Gurudev is. Even we have not even started now, but Gurudev is already telling us, please be careful of these pitfalls. We read further. The seeker should not get annoyed at himself on these observations. He should learn to patiently fight these tendencies and win over them. These are tendencies. These are all vasanas of the mind and our deep-rooted vasanas. Sleep comes because a mind in japa is a mind at rest. Train the mind not to sleep in the salubrious. What is the meaning of salubrious? Healthy and health-giving environment. A salubrious climate within. It is natural for children to sleep in a running car, and the poor things gain no thrill on the trip. So if you are doing japa and if you are gone to sleep, you are like a child who will not have any experience. Bad temper comes because of two reasons: suppression of tendencies or fatigue. The former, that is suppression of the tendencies, the former starts with the japist's own annoyance at his own mind wandering here and there during his japa. The latter is caused by exhaustion, because to hold the mind in balance at a given line of thought is a great strain to the beginner, and therefore his mind gets fatigued. Gurudev has given examples. Just as a new driver at the wheel knows not how to relax and thus exhaust himself before he has driven around the next corner of his own street, a new swimmer will be fatiguing himself within a few yards. A new housewife gets tired of looking after her very firstborn. Later on, the very same woman easily manages her half a dozen, along with her late cousin's 4 little kids, and yet discover for herself plenty of spare time and mental ease for afternoon chat with the neighbor. Such common examples Gurudev has given, which is so regular to us.
That's true. What happens is sometimes when we start something new, at least with my own experience, I'll tell you, when I started doing Hatha Yoga first time, the yoga which is for common man, I found it so difficult to hold an asana for a little prolonged time, that I almost was frustrated, crying and really behaving badly in general. But I realized that it is sometimes very difficult to try something new, especially if it is good. So it is this frustration that Gurudev is talking about, and the second was fatigue. When your mind is already tired from the outside world, we have seen the ups and downs. And that time, when it suddenly gets some peace, or suddenly you don't know how to cope with it also. So then you start getting angry, because anger is the easiest way of showing or escaping your own frustrations. So be careful of these things.
There is an art of economizing energy in work. This is so beautiful. There is, for every work, its own required stamina to be milked out from our individual personality. This is equally true in all spiritual activities called yogas. One subtle judgment upon the works of an artist as distinct from those of another is not a detail which is really taught, but it is that which during practice one comes to discover for oneself. You will discover it on your own, how to improve that stamina. It can't be taught. just like an artist. The same rule applies in the art of yoga also. The artistic rhythm and the harmony of any yoga will have to be discovered by the practitioner all for himself. This will come as a result of continuous patience in their right direction.
Continuous practicing.
I beg your pardon. Practice in the right direction. A japist attempt is always to maintain his mind in one fixed line of divine thinking. To one who has gained a sufficient poise in the subjective art of single-pointedness, gained through the practice of contemplation, to him meditation is natural. For meditation itself is but a conscious attempt to maintain the mind in one channel of thoughts belonging to the same species. So all the misunderstanding ever that anybody had about meditation, Gurudev has verbalized what meditation is. It couldn't be more clearer.
Absolutely. And you will see that once your mind has stabilized and you are more at peace with yourself, the tranquil mind has come. You will find that meditation and doing japa are a very natural state. It will come to you naturally. You will want to do it by yourself.
Japa is thus a very healthy and effective aid to meditation if properly practiced and regularly pursued. Regularity and sincerity are the secret of success in spirituality. Guard the mind against all excess and make it immune to selfishness and passion. Watch how imperceptibly the mind ties itself down with things and beings, happenings and circumstances by its own unintelligent attachments. Even when all these warnings are faithfully obeyed, there is still a subtle danger of the japa activity being muddled with the incorrigible thirst of fruits. Incorrigible means something that you can't change, unable to change, very difficult to handle. And what is that? The continuous habit of human beings. Okay, what will I gain? What is it in for me? What should I gain? If I do this, I'll get that much or what? This pollutes us. We'll read further. Profit motive is the strongest urge in man in all his strenuous activities. Japa, polluted by this profit motive, kama, cannot end in the spiritual effulgence of the one doing it. There are so many people who tell me, ultimately, sir, concentration is what is japa, right? So I am concentrating a lot on my work already and I am earning enough. Why should I do japa? They miss the point. Japa is not to earn money. That concentration is not so that you go and gain something more in the world. It is for the real gain, the gain within. Consider the japa activity as a yajna. Gather the purest and the best that you can eke out from yourself and offer them all into the japa as devout oblations. Devoted oblations. The potential strength of blessings that lies dormant in japa will thereby be invoked, and to one who is under this grace, meditation is homecoming, a pleasant and joyous ride through sunny fields and flowery gardens. The effectiveness of japa to large extent depends upon the spirit of surrender with which the seeker is practicing it. This idea of surrender should not be merely an emotional explosion of sentimental make-believes. It should be a solid act of understanding, at once deliberate and conscious. When once we understand the principle behind the surrender, we shall discover the bridge that connects the pasture land of bhakti and the snowy peaks of jnana. Let us, for example, take a typical mantra and try to discover the attitude of surrender implied in it. Om Namo Narayanaya. My prostrations unto Narayana. Prostration is not merely a physical act of bowing, but it is a conscious act of discovering the greater in us and seeking our identity with it in us and identifying with it. to tune ourselves with the better or the nobler, and thereby gathering unto ourselves the very qualities and the greatness of the higher, is true prostration. In order to prostrate, there must be at least two factors: the lesser that prostrates, and the higher at whose feet the prostrations are laid. Within each one of us, there is the matter conditioned ego and the unconditioned eternal self. We have learned this detail. The Japist in himself is trying to end his false ego at the altar of himself, the supremely divine self, Sri Narayana, in ourselves. Thus, during Japa, the individual practicing it will be sincerely striving to totally surrender his personality to Narayana, who is his concept of reality. Thus, a mantra is but a formula that explains to us at once not only what is the enduring truth in life, but also the technique by which we can reach it. Om is the symbol of the infinite, which is finally attained through surrender. Namah. Om Namah. Om Namo Narayana. Namah. Of all our false identification with the matter envelopment at the feet of the core of things, Narayana, when our individual personality concepts is removed from ourselves, we come to experience the Narayana Tattva in ourselves, which, being the same everywhere at all times, is itself the expression of Om. Om, the Brahman. In fact, it is evident now that Japa, properly undertaken is not only preparation for meditative flights, but it can in itself serve as a vehicle which can lift us from the plains and ugliness of our imperfections to the very throne of the infinite, the perfect. And Gurudev ends this chapter with a blessing. How beautiful. May you come to realize the joy and bliss of this supreme sadhana, the Japa Yoga. Om Namo Gurudevaya Namah.
Om Namo Narayana.
Om Namo Narayana. How lovely, how beautiful.
So we now know that when we prostrate also, what's the feeling? Why do we prostrate? There are two things which go into a prostration. One is the smaller, that is not that important, your own physical self which bows down. But more important is the second, to whom is it bowing down? So when you do Om Namo Narayana and you bow down at the feet of an idol or the feet of a guru, that guru or that idol that you are bowing down to, that higher self which is there within you is coming out and trying to join the bridge between bhakti and jnana. This is what is said. The bhakt is the person who is prostrating. And whom is he prostrating to? To that consciousness or that guru who is the epitome of knowledge. So prostration becomes that bridge by itself, which is from bhakti to jnana. So how beautiful everything in our culture is explained.
This is religion. This is what is called as Hinduism. Just starting with the gentle bow, the namaskar, there is full knowledge of spirituality. The philosophy of spirituality is in bowing.
So I think it is high time that we start on our japa. Let us all try and experience it for ourselves. Whatever we are doing on a spiritual path is not for anybody else, but for our own growth, for our own peace, and ultimately for our own liberation. So get all our japa malas out and find that quiet spot at a good time, and let us do at least one japa mala in the coming days. So let us end our session today with prayers and look forward to an extremely beautiful chapter Please excuse me for my cough. But tomorrow we meet again for a wonderful chapter of mantra.
But let me end with Hari Om Namo Narayana. Om Namo Narayana. Hari Om Namo Narayana. Hari Om Namo Narayana. Om Namo Narayana. Om Asito Ma Satgamaya Soma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamrutam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.
Hari
Hari
Om.
Om.